You're about to unlock a truth most men never hear until it's too late. By then, she's already gone, already stopped replying, already replaced your name in her phone with silence. And you're left there, overthinking every message you sent, every word you said, wondering why the conversation that felt so good in the moment led to nothing. No text back, no curiosity, no spark. You thought it was about what you said, or maybe how funny you were. But it's not. It never was. What makes a woman think about you long after the call ends or the date's over has nothing to do with your charm and everything to do with what you don't show her. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to plant yourself in her mind in a way I can't explain and can't shake. Most guys are busy trying to impress, talking about their job, their goals, their gym routine. They want her to think they're smart, stable, passionate, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be seen as those things. But here's the trap. The more you try to prove you're worth her attention, the more invisible you become. Why? Because the moment you seek approval, even subtly, you place her above you. You give her the role of judge, and you cast yourself as the applicant. Whether you mean to or not, you're saying, please like me. And no woman is haunted by a man who asks for her validation. Here's the shift. Attraction doesn't grow from logic. It doesn't spark from credentials or being nice enough. It roots itself in emotion, in tension, in unanswered questions, in the energy you leave hanging in the air. What makes her think about you all day isn't what you said. It's how she felt in your presence. Not just the excitement, but the mystery, the contrast, the sense that something in you was just out of reach and she wants more. She needs more. That emotional space, that gap, becomes the hook she hangs her curiosity on. You see, there's a radar in her subconscious. It turns on the second she meets you, and it doesn't care about your job title. It's not measuring your follower count. It's asking one quiet question over and over again. Do I feel more like a woman around this man? Not, is he nice? Not, is he cute? That radar doesn't run on checklists. It runs on polarity, power, contrast. And if she can sense, even for a second, that you are deeply rooted in yourself, if she feels your presence isn't grasping but grounded, that's what lingers. That's what stays. So how do you actually do it? You stop performing. You stop editing yourself to be more agreeable. You stop trying to be the perfect guy she can bring home to her mom. And you start doing the one thing most men are terrified of. You allow silence. You allow her to lean in. You let go of the pressure to entertain, to fill every moment with words, to keep her laughing. You let her feel your stillness, not the fake kind, not the brooding, I'm being mysterious to get attention act. The real kind, the calm that comes from not needing her to want you. That calm is power. That space you leave between your words, it's not empty, it's electric. Because while other guys are busy telling her everything about themselves, you stay a little hidden, not secretive, just whole, self-contained. And that drives her wild. Not because you're withholding, but because you don't need her to understand you right away. You're not there to be picked. You're there to observe, to feel, to see if she meets your standards too. That's where most men get it backwards. They approach the interaction like it's a sales pitch, like she's doing them a favor by giving them time. But the moment you flip that script, genuinely, not arrogantly, you shift from chaser to chooser. She feels it in the way you speak, in the way you hold eye contact without flinching, in the way you let her talk without rushing in to agree or impress. And it rattles her in the best way. Because that presence, that composure is rare. You want her to think about you all day? Don't try to be the best man she's ever met. Be the most felt, that man who wasn't trying to win her over. That man who seemed to know exactly who he was with or without her. That man who made her laugh, yes, but who also made her wonder. Why do I feel this way around him? Why do I keep thinking about him? That man isn't forgettable. He's unforgettable. Because he lives in her mind not through effort, but through impact. And that kind of impact never comes from pretending to be confident. It comes from being willing to lose her rather than lose yourself. The reason this works is brutally simple. Most men are predictable. You show up, you flatter her, you overshare, You try too hard to appear harmless and likable, and she sees through it in seconds. Not consciously maybe, but her nervous system knows. Her radar detects it, and that radar isn't looking for safe and sweet. It's looking for strong and sovereign. She doesn't want another guy who treats her like a goddess. She wants a man who doesn't treat her like anything until she earns it. A man who doesn't automatically give her emotional access just because she's attractive. That kind of restraint, that's power. And power is addictive. Think about the last time you couldn't stop thinking about someone. It wasn't because they told you everything, it was because they didn't. It was the feeling that you only got a piece and your mind kept filling in the blanks. Curiosity is tension, and tension, in the world of attraction, is the drug. You want her addicted to the unknown, not comforted by the familiar. You want her replaying the moments where you didn't quite answer, where you looked her dead in the eye and said, "Maybe I'll tell you if you make it interesting." That one sentence holds more weight than a dozen compliments, because it sets a frame. You are not here to qualify yourself. You are the one being experienced. When you operate like this, you begin to reverse the polarity. You become the one she's trying to impress. She starts watching her words. She starts leaning forward. She starts wondering what it takes to earn your attention, instead of assuming it's guaranteed. And that reversal is where the game changes. Not because you're playing games, but because you've exited the frame of the needy, forgettable man. You've entered the space of the grounded, magnetic man. The man who doesn't need to rush, explain, apologize, or prove. So how do you become that man? It's not about faking cool. It's about learning to be deeply comfortable in silence, in tension, in moments where nothing is being said, but everything is being communicated. And to do that, you have to face one uncomfortable truth. You have to stop needing her approval. Not pretend to stop needing it, actually stop. Which means you must find something in yourself that feels more powerful, more nourishing, more real than her attention ever could be. Otherwise, every compliment you give, every laugh you chase, every glance you hold will be driven by one invisible whisper, "Please like me," and she will feel it. You think you're hiding it behind charm, behind the way you dress, behind the little jokes and self-deprecating stories. But women are built to feel energy. They don't analyze attraction. They feel it. They feel when a man is centered in himself and when he's performing. They feel when he's rooted and when he's grasping. And the moment they sense you're trying to get something from them, the moment they sense you've already decided they're the prize, the spell breaks. You fade into the category of one of them. One of the many, polite, predictable, disposable. That's not you, not anymore. Because from this point forward, every interaction you have with a woman is no longer about getting her to feel something about you. It's about how she feels about herself when she's around you. Does she feel playful, feminine, drawn in? Or does she feel worshipped, placed on a pedestal, bored by your predictability? The right woman doesn't want to be worshipped. She wants to feel something real. And real doesn't live in compliments or constant validation. Real lives in contrast, in emotional charge, in your presence, not performance. And that presence is something she can't stop thinking about. Because it lingers. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It simply is. It takes up space, not because it demands it, but because it owns it effortlessly. And that's the man she can't forget. The one who didn't try to win her. The one who looked at her and didn't flinch. The one who left her wondering and wanting more. There's a line few men ever cross, and it's the line between being liked and being remembered. Being liked is easy. You follow the script, smile enough, nod politely, ask her about her dog, compliment her dress, avoid any topic with depth or edge. You stay safe, you stay agreeable, and you stay forgettable. Because when a woman leaves a conversation thinking he was nice, she never thinks about it again. But when she leaves wondering, what just happened? That's when you live in her head. That's when you become a question she can't answer. The men who get remembered are the ones who interrupt the pattern. She expects one thing from you, and you give her something else, not to manipulate, but to awaken. She's not used to being looked at like that. She's not used to someone disagreeing with her without backing down. She's not used to someone teasing her without fear. And she sure as hell isn't used to a man who's so rooted in his own world, he doesn't flinch when she throws a test at him. She tests your strength, your poise, your presence, and you pass without effort. Because your validation doesn't come from her response. It comes from the fact that you already chose yourself. That's the secret most guys miss. The obsession doesn't come from what you give her. It comes from what you withhold. Not love, not kindness, but identity, mystery, certainty. You don't unpack yourself like an open book. You let her earn the chapters. And each one she opens makes her want to turn the next. You don't explain your every move. You let her wonder. You don't chase her approval. You give her space to pursue yours. And that flippin' dynamic makes all the difference. Let me be clear. This isn't about arrogance. It's about sovereignty. Sovereignty means your sense of self isn't up for auction every time a pretty face walks in the room. Sovereignty means you don't rush to fill silences or over-explain your story just to feel seen. It means your life, your world, your mind are already full. You are not seeking to be completed. You are simply open to shared depth, not desperate for distraction. This creates a feeling in her body that she doesn't get often. She feels feminine again, not because you tell her to, but because your energy invites it. It holds her without grabbing her. It steadies her without caging her. It calls her forward, not by begging, but by simply standing still. And that, to a woman who's used to chasing certainty in uncertain men, is hypnotic. You ever see a woman become quiet around a certain type of man? The guy isn't loud. He isn't overly charismatic. But something in him pulls her in. He doesn't flinch when she tries to provoke him. He doesn't try to be funny when she gets sarcastic. He lets the moment breathe. He speaks slowly. He listens. And when he looks at her, it's not with hunger, it's with knowing. That's the guy she thinks about. That's the guy she dreams about. Because he didn't give her the performance. He gave her the truth. He knows who he is, and he's not afraid to walk away. And that's what makes her chase you in her thoughts. Not because you manipulated her, not because you used some technique, but because you became a man who is more compelling in absence than most are in presence. A man who creates emotional weight by simply being himself, fully, without needing to be received, understood, or praised. The more you try to be seen, the more invisible you become. But the more you see yourself, the more she feels you, even when you're gone. The men who leave the deepest mark are the ones who can walk away without leaving a trace of bitterness. They don't beg for one more chance. They don't spiral into, what did I do wrong? They just go. And their silence speaks louder than any desperate text ever could. That silence isn't empty. It's potent. It echoes. It leaves room for her to feel everything she didn't feel when you were too available, too eager, too easy. She remembers your calm, your unbothered energy, your ability to leave space without guilt. And in that space, she starts to miss you, not for what you gave her, but for what you were when you didn't need to give her anything at all. This isn't about playing cold. You're not punishing, you're just not performing. There's a quiet defiance in a man who doesn't chase, not because he's afraid of love, but because he's unwilling to lose himself in the name of it. That man is magnetic, not because he's mysterious by strategy, but because he's full by nature. He has nothing to prove, no wounds to heal through a woman's validation. He's already met himself. And that kind of man, he's rare. So rare that when a woman stumbles across him, her entire nervous system lights up, not from fear, but from recognition. Something in her knows, this one's different. And when you're different, you don't need to sell yourself. You don't need to dominate a conversation. You don't need to flood her phone with clever texts or perfectly timed emojis. You say less, you ask better questions. You let her reveal herself while you observe. And not from a place of manipulation, but discernment. Does she meet your standard? Does she feel safe in her feminine? Does she respond to your energy with depth or just surface play? Because this is where the shift happens. Most men walk into conversations hoping to win the girl, but the man who haunts her thoughts, he walks in with the question, do you belong in my life? He's not cold, he's not rude, but he's selective, he's calm, he's deeply present and completely unattached. That's what wraps around her thoughts like smoke. That feeling that she didn't get all of you, that maybe she wasn't quite enough to make you open fully, that maybe she'll need to show up better next time, and that next time starts to consume her. She replays your voice. She replays the way you looked at her and didn't flinch. She remembers the way you teased her without fear, the way you let her have her little power plays and didn't bite. You smiled, maybe said something unexpected, maybe just leaned back and let her burn herself out. You didn't flinch. And that composure, it stays with her. You want her thinking about you all day? Then stop trying to impress her in the moment. Start giving her moments she can't forget. A glance that's too steady, a silence that stretches too long, a response that's too honest. You don't need to be outrageous. You just need to be realer than every other man she's met that month. Because reality is rare. Presence is rare. Depth is rare. And those things don't scream. They whisper. Whispers stay longer than noise. There's a reason the loudest guy in the room rarely wins. He might get the first look. He might grab attention. But attention fades. It gets replaced by the next loud voice, the next flashy trick. What never fades, what etches itself into her, is the man who didn't need the spotlight. The one who could hold eye contact longer than comfort allows. The one who said less but meant more. The one who didn't need her but saw her and then vanished without a trace of neediness. That man doesn't get scrolled past. He gets searched for. Most women don't even realize it's happening. They'll go home, scroll through their phone, swipe through messages, and wonder why none of them spark anything. Then a random memory hits. You leaning back. You asking something deeper than, "What do you do?" You calling her out gently, playfully, but daringly, and suddenly she's re-engaged. Not because you were nice, not because you were safe, but because you made her feel something that wasn't prepackaged, polished, or performative. You sparked presence. And presence is intimacy without touch. The mistake most guys make is trying to rush that feeling. They try to impress their way in, but you can't force presence. You can only become so still, so rooted, so unapologetically you that she feels it just by standing near you. That stillness is uncomfortable at first. It'll make you second guess. It'll whisper lies. You're not doing enough. Say something. Make her laugh. But if you can sit in that discomfort, she will start to feel it too. Not the awkwardness, but the energy. And her mind will begin to swirl around one truth. This man is not like the rest. She may try to poke holes in you, joke with you, challenge you. That's not rejection. That's tension-seeking resolution. She's trying to find your edge. And if you let her push you off your center, even for a second, she'll feel it. She won't say it out loud, but her body will register. Not yet, not solid. But if you stand there clear, calm, and unfazed, you've already passed the test. Not because you won a point, but because you didn't lose you. And that's what burns into her psyche. That's what sticks. We live in a world of men trying to be chosen. Curated Instagram profiles, rehearsed Tinder openers, filtered versions of filtered lives. And then you show up, not filtered, not perfect, just real, grounded, honest, a little dangerous in your refusal to pretend. And she doesn't quite know what to do with you. That confusion, that curiosity, that's exactly where you want to be. Because a woman may forget your name, your jaw, your clever jokes, but she will never forget the feeling of a man who didn't need her, didn't perform for her, and didn't flinch when she tested his edge. She won't be able to put her finger on it. She might say, there's something about him. That something is presence. That something is emotional gravity. And that gravity pulls at her thoughts long after you're gone. And here's the brutal part. Most men don't have the stomach for this. They want a guaranteed reaction. They want the girl to laugh, to lean in, to validate them right now. So they talk more, reveal more, compliment more, hoping something will land. But when nothing lands, they panic. They double down. and every word becomes another crack in their frame, until the woman doesn't even need to reject them, because they have already rejected themselves. But if you can learn to sit in the fire, to stay composed in the silence between moments, you become something rare. You become a man who doesn't need a reaction to stay grounded. And that, ironically, is what creates the reaction. She feels your calm, and suddenly her mind isn't in control anymore. Her emotions start pulling her in your direction, and she doesn't understand why. She just knows that you stuck. That's the thing no dating app, no pickup line, no surface-level YouTube advice can teach you. You don't get remembered by what you say. You get remembered by what you make her feel without saying anything at all. A glance, a pause, a slight smirk when she tests you, a non-answer to a question that feels too easy. That's the texture of the unforgettable. That's what her memory hooks onto. And it's not about trying to play mysterious. It's about being comfortable in not being understood all at once. Because when you don't give it all away, she invests mental energy trying to figure you out. And where attention goes, emotion follows. And where emotion follows, obsession is born. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to play alpha. You just need to remember who you are before she walked in the room and refuse to let her presence distort that. You hold your standard. You stay in your body. You don't flinch when she flirts it with another guy or pulls away a little to see what you'll do. Because you're not reacting to her behavior, you're responding to your own reality. She is an addition, not a necessity. You don't prove your worth, you assume it. You don't convince, you observe. You don't chase, you move through your world and let her catch up. And yes, that means some women won't bite, some won't lean in, some won't stay curious. That's okay. You're not for everyone. You're not trying to be. Because the woman who does feel it, who does sense that your silence says more than 1,000 rehearsed lines, that's the one who will keep thinking about you when she wakes up, when she's at work, when she's with other guys. And she'll wonder, why can't I stop thinking about him? It's not because of what you gave her. It's because of what you didn't. You didn't collapse into comfort. You didn't chase her approval. You didn't need her to validate your manhood. You were already whole. And in a world of men trying to fill the void by being picked, the man who arrives already full is the one who stays on her mind long after the night ends. She may not admit it. In fact, she might actively resist it. Because the kind of man who leaves that kind of imprint scares her. Not because he's dangerous, but because he's undeniable. He reminds her of something real, something too deep for small talk and surface-level attraction. She finds herself reaching for her phone, hovering over your name and stopping, because she doesn't want to appear too eager. She doesn't want to show that you got in. But the truth is, you already did. Not with a clever line, not with gifts or flattery. You got in by being the one man who didn't need to. You see, when most men leave a woman's space, they leave a void filled with desperation. Texts, overthinking, explanations, apologies. They try to hold on to the connection by force. But the man who walks away without anxiety, who lets the silence breathe like an old friend, is the one who takes up permanent real estate in her mind. Not because he ghosted her, but because he never chased her in the first place. He existed fully, and then he left fully. No half-hearted linger, no breadcrumbs, no insecurity, just presence and absence, and both are unforgettable when they're real. That's the paradox most men don't understand. The less you seek to be remembered, the more she remembers you. The less you try to be liked, the more she's drawn to you. But this only works if it's coming from the right place. It can't be faked. It can't be forced. If you pretend to be nonchalant, but you're secretly spiraling inside, she'll feel it. If you withdraw just to get a reaction, she'll know. But if you're genuinely grounded in your own internal world, if your identity is not up for negotiation, then every woman who meets you feels it. Some will be intimidated, some will be intrigued. The right ones will be magnetized. And that magnetism isn't a skill, it's not a trick. It's the result of emotional discipline. It's the reward of choosing your own energy over the addiction to approval. It's the inevitable effect of doing the inner work to become a man who doesn't bend at the first sign of rejection, who doesn't shift to please, who doesn't fake warmth to avoid discomfort. You're warm when you mean it, cold when you need to be. Silent when words are cheap. Honest when everyone else is selling a polished lie. That's the real presence. That's the energy that walks into a room and doesn't ask for respect. It simply commands it. Without words, without drama, without effort. That's the energy she can't forget. Because it doesn't just impress her, it affects her. It stirs something deeper than attraction. It awakens a craving, not for more entertainment, but for more of you. And she doesn't even know why. But you do. Because you're not here to be liked. You're not here to be picked. You're here to lead. And the first thing a leader does is stop performing. You stop performing and something incredible happens. Your world stops revolving around women, and women start orbiting you. Not because you're flashy, not because you're mysterious by design, but because your life is so full, your values so clear, and your energy so anchored that she feels your gravity. She knows without you saying a word that you're not available to just anyone, that being around you isn't casual. It means something, and that meaning doesn't come from what you give her. It comes from what you withhold until it's earned. She'll think about the things you didn't say, the way you listened instead of filled the silence, the way you held your ground when she tested your patience. She'll wonder what it would feel like to be chosen by a man who doesn't need her to feel chosen himself. That kind of man doesn't just get remembered, he becomes the standard she compares everyone else to. And most won't measure up. And yes, it's hard, because this kind of presence requires more than a few mindset shifts. It requires discipline, self-awareness, emotional sobriety. It demands that you stop looking outward for validation and start building an internal world worth protecting. It means you sit in your loneliness, your uncertainty, your unresolved wounds, without numbing them through attention. It means becoming the kind of man who doesn't need the girl to stop feeling like a man. Once you cross that threshold, something unlocks. You stop flinching, you stop chasing, you stop negotiating your identity in exchange for approval. And in that silence, real silence, you become magnetic. Not loud, not flashy, just undeniable. You walk into a room and you don't need eyes on you, but they land anyway. You speak less, but every word lands deeper. You show restraint, and it makes her imagination run wild. You laugh, but only when it's honest. You disappear, and she checks her phone without knowing why. Not because you manipulated her, not because you followed a formula, but because you were the formula. You became the presence that doesn't leave, even after you've walked away. That's how she thinks about you all day. That's how you become unforgettable. Not by chasing her attention, but by mastering your own. If this hits something deep for you, leave a comment. Share the moment you realized you were chasing too hard, or when silence finally earned you more than noise ever did. And if you're ready to keep becoming the kind of man who doesn't beg to be remembered, follow, share, and keep showing up. The real rulebook isn't something you read, it's something you become.